Welcome to Mind Your Mind. I am Roxana Barra Sepulveda, your host. In this podcast, we explore the importance of self care and work life balance for anyone working in the front line. As a psychotherapist and clinical supervisor, over the years, I have seen firsthand the impact of demanding jobs on a personal and professional level. I will be sharing my years of experience and expert insights to help first responders, care and health professionals, charity and higher educational frontline workers thrive in their careers rather than burnout. During each episode, I will be talking with friends and colleagues who are experts in their field to further understand the potential impact of working with survivors of trauma and will share tips and loads of useful information to help you to develop your own personally meaningful strategy to maintain your resilience and optimal well-being while supporting others that are suffering. Join me as we create a chain of support and resilience where taking care of yourself is just as important as taking care of others. Remember, selfish is kind.
Is that we have field work from the very beginning.
Good morning. If you want to enhance your practice, avoid secondary traumatization and burnout, stories of trauma, emotional or physical. Welcome. Here we are again at Mind and Mind with Gaby Cabrera-Kimchi. Welcome, Gaby. She is a functional medicine women's health coach, holistic health advocate, and educator, founder of Wellness with Gaby, and the creator of the Optimal Living Method. Having suffered and recovered from chronic stress and adrenal dysfunction, she is on a mission to revolutionize women's health by empowering women to understand their bodies and harness their hormones at any stage of life using functional medicine. Wellness with Gaby combines a cutting-edge functional medical science with bio-individual health coaching to help clients unearth the root causes that are creating imbalances in their unique female biochemistry instead of simply band-aiding symptoms, so they can take action and finally enjoy sustained, radiant health. She is an active member of the UK Health Coaches Association and works with clients one-to-one and runs bespoke masterclasses and group workshops for corporate clients. So thank you so much for being there, Gaby. Welcome again. Hello.
Hi, I'm so happy to be back. This is a super exciting episode. I can't wait.
Yes, I am super excited as well because we have been anybody that is just joining us today for the first time, I will invite them to hear the previous episode 3 where we were talking with Gaby as well and unpacking stress. So you can have an understanding of what stress is and how that can impact in ourselves, in our immune system. But also we left everybody with a task, with a little task to start in that journey of understanding your stress. We find that is very, very, very important. So today we will be focusing on the practical side. And Gaby, I will let you to tell us what you will be sharing with us today. But before we get started with all of this, I think one of the things that comes to mind is that we obviously today we will be giving some information and tips to create your toolkit to manage stress, but I want to pause in that word, no? And in this idea that we have to manage stress and how I know that you have strong ideas about it and I would like to hear it because I think it's very important in terms of how it can change our approach to understanding stress.
Yes. So I don't like the word managing stress or the concept of being able to manage that stress, because that makes us think that stress is something negative that we need to just manage and then we'll be fine, and then obviously that's not true, because in the first episode we spoke about how stress is a natural, innate mechanism that actually protects us. So it's neutral and it's key to our survival. Therefore, what I invite people to do is to have an awareness around stress, and to know their unique loads so that they can minimize the impact on their mind bodies at any given time. So that to me is a more realistic and a healthier, I think, way to go about stress. It's to really get to know your triggers and to unpack it, to really unpack that stress so that it's not this thing that you feel like you need to manage, because you don't need to manage it. It happens naturally. It's there to protect you, but our modern life is interfering with that. So that is the change in concept that I'd like to invite you to have.
Yeah, it's like the mindset that we have towards stress, no?
Exactly.
And how in that idea of managing, it's sort of create the illusion of control of it, whether it's more about understanding. Now we are moving to an idea of, through awareness of your own stress and what are your own triggers, will help you to understand what is stressful for you, what stress means to you.
Yes.
Independently of everybody else. We tend to generalize, and I think we are moving here very much into the personalized kind of aspect of our experience, because it's, as human, we are absolutely individual, reacting and living and experiencing life in a very singular, particular way.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously,
yes.
There are so many aspects of science that can help us to understand so many processes, but it's different for all of us. And so being aware of our stress will be the key point, the key starting point. And the exercise that we invited everybody to do is to notice those lows, those moments in which we are experiencing the more highly extreme discomfort, no? And to start to understand those moments. Those moments are the ones that are particularly stressful.
Yes, without really analyzing them. It's more about going back to that feeling. So what is it actually, when I'm stressed, what does it actually feel like in my body? Do I get sweaty hands? You know, is my heart racing? And just kind of lean towards being comfortable with that discomfort. Because usually it's our responses to that discomfort that get us stuck in that vicious cycle of stress, you know, at least from a perceived stress type of situation. The physiological ones will be different, and we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah. Okay. So you're making a distinction there, and I would like you to expand a little bit more, if you can, Gaby, with this idea of the internal kind of stress, and how do we deal with that?
Yes. So if we remember again our definition of stress as a biochemical process that happens in our bodies when we're faced with challenges, well, you have to ask where are those challenges coming from? So yes, a lot of our stress is perceived and emotional. So all those unresolved issues, past grievances, you know, preoccupying yourself with things. Loneliness is also a huge cause, and social isolation and lack of social support is a huge cause of stress.
Yes.
We now know that actually loneliness probably kills more than smoking, actually. So it is a big load in a lot of people's buckets, as I like to think of life. I like to think of life as a bucket, and you've got your loads, and then those loads, when they get too heavy, start to make holes in that bucket. And that's how your energy, your life force leaks. And so I ask people to kind of visualize their bucket and see where they're leaking. And then the other side of stress is also physiological. Obviously, all those things that are going on in our bodies that our bodies have to respond to in order to make us see another day, to survive, right? And so it comes in many forms. It can be an infection, you know, viral, fungal, any type, inflammation from the immune system maybe being overreactive, or even underreactive. Obesity is a huge cause of stress, insufficient sleep, overuse of stimulants, so things like caffeine, sugar, constantly eating and not letting your body rest is also a form of stress. Toxins, I mentioned that briefly. We're exposed to more toxins today than our grandparents were in their lifetime. Just sit that for a second. I mean, they come from every angle in the foods we eat and the air we breathe. They're absolutely everywhere, and our bodies just don't know how to deal with that load.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah, and the day to day, no, what you're saying, you make me think immediately in the level of isolation we all had to experience during the pandemic. That is something that everybody's just recovering from.
Exactly.
Plus all the bereavement that many of us have had to go through, particularly in that time, in very, very sort of particular circumstances as well, no? So all of that, and you make me think, we were talking about the vitamin J last time.
Yes, we were.
And vitamin J is the vitamin joy. But also makes me think about the vitamin S. We do need to connect with others. So, and our brain is a social organ, and we need others. So that element of connection and nurturing healthy relationships in our life is a very important fund of positive energy to reduce as well the impact of stress.
Absolutely. And we see this a lot in places like the blue zones around the world, which is a super neat study that was carried out, where people live the longest, and not just the longest, but are actually healthier. So their health span is longer. So they are alive and well, and they're functioning. And the social element was noted as one of the key elements to people's longevity and staying vital for longer, because in those communities, seeing friends is a part of life. And actually, I think they saw at least 5 people they loved every day. I mean, you think about our Western world, and we tend to not do that. Yeah. We don't have immediate family nearby, etc. And we're just very, stuck in our day-to-day and that kind of thing. It can be hard.
Yeah, and I will think particularly we are based in the UK, no? And the time that we spend with our work colleagues is much longer than the time that we spend with our own families.
Absolutely.
And then that makes me think as well on how of the importance and how strong can be the impact of the environment that we are working in, no? And if on top of that we are working with people that are suffering, like all our audience is, the charity workers, the health, higher education, frontline workers, the health professionals, the care professionals, the first responders, all consistently working with people suffering for a reason, surviving traumatic situations and experiences in life. We have a very big combo there that will put a lot of strain in our system. So I'm keen on today thinking about how do everybody can start to think about creating their own toolkit.
Yes.
For being aware of their stress and helping them to reduce it in a way, not to get to that very point of, because we were saying before about the need of that stress will have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And today's episode, we will be focusing on that point, in the ending point.
On the ending point, on that completion, and also understanding that not just one thing is going to help. So, I hear a lot when people are burnt out, oh, just rest more, or just do this. And that's very helpful, and it's well-meaning, but it's very well-meaning, but not so helpful, because when you really understand the stress response, it's not that easy. And it really is about taking the body back to safety and letting the body needs to believe in its core that it is safe in order to carry on. And I learned this the hard way because I burnt out and I suffered from chronic stress and adrenal dysfunction. And that's how I came across functional medicine and health coaching. And I was so, I guess, surprised by what it did to me after I'd lost all hope, that I thought, well, this revolutionized my world. I need to train, retrain, and now this is what I do for a living. And when I started feeling off, I guess the first thing I did was, well, I just need to think positively, and maybe I just need to do some therapy and I'll be fine. And then I realized, well, actually, yes, that's helped a lot, but I'm not 100%. So I kept digging and digging. And that's when I came across functional medicine, and I discovered that I had an underlying gut issue. And so although I was eating a perfect diet on paper, it was all organic, I was eating super healthy, I wasn't really absorbing anything because of this gut issue that I had that was creating dysbiosis. So this is how I came. I'm telling you all this to kind of tell you how I came to do the optimal living method, how I created it, just realizing that actually health is more than just, 1 + 1 = 2. It's about thinking about it holistically, and how all of these factors that come into our life experience creates that experience at any given moment. And so optimal living to me is that sweet spot where nutrition, stress and thought awareness, movement, rest and regeneration, and connection to self and others comes in. So those are the 5 pillars of my method, and I'll go into each one to kind of give people some ideas of what they can start to do today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gaby. You make me think about my own experience as well, in which I have had moments in which I felt so incredibly fearful at work. I started to experience fear, which I've never, ever before have experienced. And then is when I realized that I have reached a level of stress and pressure that I didn't reach before. And because you're talking about a sense of safety, and I think that is an essential and core element that everybody sort of, I think with what we will be talking about today, we will hopefully start to help everybody to start to get in connection with that sense of safety, which is about where is that place where there is a kind of warmth within, that you feel that everything will be all right. It's almost that sensation makes me think about my father's warm, kind hugs, which I felt like everything will be all right. And I'm sure everybody have different experiences of when they have had a moment with anybody. Not everybody have had the fortune that I had of having my dad. So I know that it's important to look in your group, in your inner circle, what was that feeling? And I think that could be as well a very good guide, because we work a lot in avoiding things. But and I was talking with my clients about it yesterday, one of my clients, that we work a lot in avoiding the negative, what we don't want, but we really don't get to think about what we want.
100%.
And where are we heading to, where we would like to head to. That's why I think this sense of safety that you're bringing in, as an idea.
But that's actually what you said is so true. It's a parasympathetic way of life. When you are safe and you have the chance to actually have wider vision and be able to see the opportunities and then get that idea of where you want to go next. That's parasympathetic. And the way we live today is purely sympathetic. It's just do, avoid. And then that's it, go to sleep, start the next day, play again. So we do need that interoception, connecting to the body, that intuition, and just getting very clear on what it is. If we don't take time to think about what it is that we want to do, then life would just takes over, and we just keep doing without any time to actually think of what it is that we want to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we talk a little bit
Yeah.
more about all those different pillars so people can
Yes.
start to understand more on how this works?
So yeah, let's go into nutrition. And nutrition really is more than what you just eat. When you see how the body reacts to all these micronutrients, and actually that eating is a parasympathetic function, you understand that actually to be healthy, it takes more than just eating the right things. You need to be rested. You need to be calm so that you've got optimal digestive enzymes, optimal stomach acid, unpacking all of that goodness so that it can go to all those cells in the body that need it, right? And stress is a double whammy because it eats away all the raw materials that you have, because stress is a very catabolic function. So it needs a lot of resources. It comes at a cost. So whatever you have, it's getting eaten away more rapidly. But at the same time, because of what I said, that stress impacts the digestive system and the digestive function in the body, it also means that you will be less able to get those nutrients in. So you're stuck in a little bit of a vicious cycle. So first thing I tell my clients is you need to breathe before you eat. Your body actually needs to acknowledge that you're sitting down to eat, and that this is something sacred that basically replenishes every cell in your body, and every cell will be built on whatever raw materials that you're putting in. So it's a sacred act, really. And beyond thinking about some of the nutrients that are actually beneficial to the nervous system, things like vitamin C, for example, magnesium, all of your B vitamins, lots of amino acids, we have to think about eating enough, like I mentioned in my example with unpacking stress in the previous episode. A lot of people don't eat enough, or they don't eat in a balanced way. And actually, both of these things can be stressors to the body. So I urge my clients who are very busy to make sure they start the day with protein and a balanced meal. And it could look like, a protein smoothie. If that's all you have time for, that's amazing, because that sets you up for your day. How you start your day has a huge impact on how your day carries on. And this is a very easy win, I think, in our busy lives. When everything else is out of control, focus on this. Hydration is huge. So our adrenals are obviously overworked. That's where stress hormones get produced. And they regulate lots of things, including blood pressure, through this electrolyte balance. And so we want to make sure that we're drinking enough, but that actually that water is going to the cellular level. So things like adding, electrolytes, drinks to hopefully without sugar to that water would be really beneficial. And so focusing on eating in a calm state, focusing on as much as you can, not having any processed foods, any added sugars, and that hopefully a lot of your produce can be organic, or if budget doesn't allow, I urge my clients to check out the environmental working groups list of Dirty Dozen. So those are all the crops that you should avoid because they're heavily pesticided. And you don't want those pesticides in your body because they are endocrine disruptors. So small things that can give you a lot of return, because obviously your body needs those raw materials and it needs to be absorbing all that in order for you to have that energy to carry on, right? So you can't really work on mindset alone if you're not working on the raw materials. And this is why I think nutrition is something we always start with.
Yeah, and also I think especially with food, there is something about little habits that we can start to change. I really like the idea of breathing before we eat, and the moment you say that, you make me think about how many times, and I'm sure you have done it, we are eating on the go. literally on the go, without having a moment in which we can pause and allow ourselves to sort of ingest the food in a calm way, so our body can receive that. But also, what the image that comes to mind is when I used to work in a charity organization, and we had a table that was full, Gaby, full of different types of biscuits.
Wow.
So, and that was there for us to eat. And it was amazing how for more that I personally tried to avoid it as much as I could, but then I couldn't, because it was there and I can see it, and it was so tempting. And I was wondering what to do, because it was the routine for everybody to just carry on eating. And I was noticing as well how much of the biscuits we were all eating every day. So that sugar intake, and how much that sugar intake has something to do as well with this illusion of sort of creating stress resilience, or relieving stress, when actually it can have exactly the opposite effect.
The opposite effect. It's like we're self-medicating with sugar, and caffeine, because we feel all these things that we don't like to feel. And so we're like, okay, a biscuit will solve it, and I say this with a lot of compassion. I'm not in any way saying this is actually just the way we live. Some people medicate with over busying themselves, because it's easier to do that than it is to face their issues, or we all have it.
And this becomes some habits that we don't notice sometimes. The drink after work.
Yes,
it can become a routine very easily.
Very easily.
I mean, there are. And that's the point, that I'm trying to raise here as well, without judgment, is about how easy it is to get into certain habits. And that we need to, at the beginning, we need to make a little effort to go and instead of mindset, instead of the biscuits and the sugar, instead of the drink. Instead of the drink after work, what I will do, what else I could do instead of, what will be that stress resilience builder.
And with awareness. So if your triggers, so if I've worked with clients who had this 3 p.m. I need the biscuit type thing. I need to have it. And so when we unpacked the day and we saw that actually that was right before she had to go on the school run, and that, she's like, she felt the stress of that coming on, and that was her way of self-medicating. So when she realized that was what she was doing, she stopped. She didn't need the biscuit. She drank a tea, and she's like, right, and she also realized that she felt like this because, she wasn't doing enough for herself during the day. And so it was this vicious cycle that she'd started. And when she, with awareness, loving awareness, and a lot of thought work, realized this was the pattern, it stopped. And so we can only unpack these things once we've stopped to think about, that exercise that we did with unpacking stress.
Yes, and that is taking us nicely also into the second aspect of the method, because it's about stress and thought awareness.
Correct. Yes. So moving away, this is inviting people to move away from that unconscious reactivity, so that your go-to mode to certain circumstances, and actually create that space so that you can have a more thoughtful, more constructive response, And this is where the importance of reframing stress is really key. So understanding that it's an innate, natural thing, but actually that what we want to be focusing on is the impact of stress on our bodies. And that's where we have a lot of choice and opportunity for reflection and improvement, right? So things like meditation, for example, or doing a thought awareness exercise, journaling, anything that brings you back into the body and allows you to safely explore what it is that you are making things out to be, then it will be beneficial. So breaking down that stress response to get familiar with your patterns. I know your cues and clues when things are about to change. So I've used this a lot in retraining my response to my kids, for example. And I'm not perfect. I don't think anyone is. This is a journey. This is not something that you arrive at and you're enlightened.
No, perfection doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. So I decided one day that I wanted to be a more present mom, and that the only way I was going to do this is if I worked on myself and understood my triggers more. And I can safely say that now, 70% of the time, maybe even 80%, I don't react to my kids, what I used to call misbehavior, or, not doing the things I wanted, because I'm able to just breathe and respond differently. And so it's come with a lot of practice, a lot of meditation and introspection, but I think it's really, really worth it.
Absolutely. And this is a personal journey as well, no, that can be done with assistance too, in terms of you thinking about who will be your support network in this journey for you, who will be there to help you to think, and I'm saying to help you to think in the sense of who you can sit and be in that thinking, processing kind of mode, in which you are raising the awareness of your own response towards everything that you are dealing with at work, in life. And I can obviously think about therapy, but also to think about the colleagues that you have around you, the people that you are with and on day to day, to create those spaces of reflective practice, create those spaces of debriefing. We have had a difficult situation. Okay, let's allow 10 minutes to think about what happened, what was the situation, how do we manage it, how do we react to it, and use those moments to actually acknowledge what was your personal reaction.
Yes,
no?
And it's huge.
That can help you.
It sounds really soft, like people want interventions that they can see, like, oh, well, if I take the supplements, then I'm going to be okay. But actually, thought work is huge, because our body is constantly sensing our environment for cues and clues about the status of our world, right? That is the information that we're putting into our bodies. And so the most influential component in all of that is your thoughts. It's actually your interpretation of the world. That's what your body is getting, and it gets to work on that interpretation of the world. So it is a huge component of building your toolkit.
Yeah, very important. And because also it will have an impact in the way that you, and we're in the way that you react to the situations, no? And what do you make of what's happening?
Precisely.
But also I'm thinking that it's important to acknowledge here that is not about creating an overthinking kind of process, but just allowing to be aware, to understand. I think it's about understanding with compassion, with self-compassion.
Yes, absolutely.
Understanding of what are your triggers, how do you react to situations, and from there comes change as well. And also, but it needs to be full of self-compassion and not criticism, because it's very easy to get into that place as well. That is part, I guess, of the what feeds stress is the self-talking, and how negative self-talking can be sometimes, and how easy. And it's interesting because especially with the workers in the charity sector, and I mean anybody that works helping others, have what I have seen a lot is that it's so easy to think about others' needs, but it becomes quite difficult and progressively difficult to maintain the connection with oneself.
Yes.
And so one of the issues there is that in losing the connection with oneself, we lose sight of ourselves, we lose sight of your own needs. And that will be the part of the process to heading towards burnout. But it's so easy to get there, because if you are consistently having to respond to somebody else's needs, that becomes the habit. No, that becomes the your default.
Yes.
And it's really important to, I want to highlight this point here, to encourage everybody that are out there working and helping people to allow themselves to start to think about your own needs in a way that is not judgmental and is releasing you from guilt. I think so many times as well, thinking about your own personal needs can be seen as selfish and experienced with a lot of guilt, especially when we are working with others that are suffering and that are in circumstances in life that are much worse than our personal circumstances. So that's something that I want to acknowledge at this point, because it's something that we see a lot. And I'm sure many of you out there listening today will probably connect with that idea. And that's why as well, and this is a part of a conversation I was having with a friend of a friend, that when I was just starting to talk about the podcast, and he came up with this notion of selfish is kind. You know, you do need to have that little, don't lose sight of that little aspect of selfishness to start to think about your own needs.
Our needs need to be met. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The core basic needs that we all have, you know, to feel safe and seen and loved, right?
Absolutely.
And so, understand where your needs aren't being met, and, you know, with loving compassion, kind of go there without judging. It's easy to. And at the beginning, when I was kind of doing my own work, I kept judging myself, and that only triggered me more, right? So now I think,
especially when we compare as well.
Well, oh my
ourselves
goodness.
To others.
Oh yes, that's another topic for like another session. Like we can talk about that for hours, I think. So it's really just labeling things as they are objectively as much as you can, without any adjectives, without any emotion. It's just, you know, black or white. This is what it is.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about the next element of the
So the next element is
pillar.
Movement. So movement. We're on to pillar 3, and again, I don't say exercise because it's got such a bad connotation. Like I want to move away from no pain, no gain mentality. This is about innately humans are wired to move. Like this is something that we do, and we've stopped doing it. And appropriate movement, so this is the key message. It's something that doesn't worsen the load of stress. So I see a lot of very well-meaning clients who think they're doing the best that they can by, you know, working out like crazy and exhausting their hormones. And we start to see the impact on the body, because exercise is a stressor to the body, a good one that through hormesis will make you feel stronger. But it is a stressor. And so especially if you're on the burnout spectrum, if you're getting close to burnout, when you do your exercise is key. So you want to maybe do it in the morning more so than in the evening, because that's when cortisol needs to start going down. And if you suddenly exercise in the evening, you're going to require that pumping of cortisol and excess glucose in order to perform. And that takes a toll on the body, for example. Or, you know, if you hear that the latest fad is let's just do HIIT exercise, and then you just go and do that every single day. And then, especially if you're a woman in your reproductive years, you really perform well in the first phase of the cycle and not so well in the second phase of the cycle. You start to see why our bodies don't love that. And so if you're working out and you know you need 2 days to recover, you've overdone it. That's your body telling you you've overdone it. So we need exercise or movement, as I prefer to refer to it. But things just like walking, you know, and getting fresh air, for example, especially in nature, helps to reduce cortisol in just 20 minutes. So if you've had a difficult conversation and you've had a difficult morning, go out for a walk and get some fresh air. There's actually science to back up why that feels good. We all know it intuitively, but there's now science to back it up.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about dancing as well.
Oh
I
my
love
gosh,
dancing.
dancing.
That just at this, just one song.
Yeah, I know. It just
Just
changes
one song.
everything. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
when in doubt, just dance. That's one of my
my go-to.
mottos. Yeah.
That's
Yes.
wonderful. And which is actually, we are talking about movement, and but there is also something about finding whichever movement can be useful for you, you know, that you feel comfortable with. I know
Yes.
many people that use cycling a lot, and that can be, and how you will integrate your movement in your daily routine, even if it is walking an extra block to go in your commuting, or you know. So we are thinking here about the minimum easier thing you can do to start with this toolkit and start to incorporate these elements into your daily routine.
Your life. So moving with your life is something I say to my clients. Think of ways that you can move with your life so that it doesn't become another stressor. Like, oh my God, I need to move. Like, I don't have time. Where am I going to fit that in? Well, think of how you can just make an extra effort with your routine, with your life. So if you go to the supermarket, instead of the trolley, take 2 baskets, you know, and then just see that as a workout. There's a really interesting study that they did on especially on mindset and mindfulness and how it impacts your body, and how these chambermaids in the US that worked in a hotel, they came to study them, and they said, do you feel like you exercise? And they're like, I don't have time to exercise. I work 24/7. I'm always working. When would I be able to fit it in? And they said, well, actually, from the amount of physical stress that you put on your body every day, from, you know, changing bed sheets and taking laundry and doing all the things that you do in a hotel to make sure that it's clean, we see that you're actually moving more than the recommended amount from the government. And they're like, oh, really? Like, I'm exercising whilst I'm working? Yes, you are. Okay. So they took their vital signs at the beginning of the study. And then once they changed their mindset, that was the only thing they changed, just their mindset. And then they took their labs again at the end, and they all experienced improved blood biochemistry. So lower inflammation. I think it was lower lipids as well. And this is just from changing your mindset. So if you tell yourself, acknowledging that what you're doing has an effect. And so, you know, another thing that's really simple is making sure you move after eating meals, just 10 minutes instead of sitting down again or staying sat down, just move. We know this really helps to make you less insulin resistant and to make sure that that blood glucose is getting stored in the right way instead of being out creating havoc for too long. So it's small things like that. It doesn't mean taking out an expensive gym membership necessarily. It just means
gyms will not like us.
No, it's sorry.
But how many people do initiate the gym membership, especially now in January with all the change of year and everything. Everybody goes running to
if that's your thing and it works for you, amazing. But you know,
Fabulous.
I see it so many times that it doesn't work, and it just stresses people out because they've spent more money and they're not getting to the gym. So actually just think cleverly how you can tweak your day to include these micro moments. Again, it's about those micro moments of exercise.
But also we need to rest.
Oh, yes. So it's that balance. So I think we're getting, if you haven't gathered from our talk, I think human beings and our bodies just love that balance. And when they are in balance, they're able to thrive. It's when we interfere with that balance that things start to go wonky. And it's not that our bodies are dumb or they don't like us anymore and they're doing all these things. They're trying actually to protect us. So they're trying to adapt to the circumstances that we're asking it to thrive in. However, the body wasn't built to do all those things. That's when things start to malfunction. So I think that is key here. And so sleep, yes, it's great to tell people you need to sleep 7 hours, but it's so hard to do that. And then what I like to focus on more is the regeneration throughout the day, because that's what gives you optimal sleep. In a way, regenerating throughout the day is what primes sleep. So you can't have one without the other. So things like sleep hygiene are very important, and really looking after your circadian rhythm. So that's our 24-hour cycle, the biological clock that we have inside. And the best way to do that is trying to go to bed and waking up at around the same time. That really helps with the circadian rhythm. Exposing yourself to natural lights when you wake up. So that gives you that nice boost of cortisol in the morning. And then as the day starts to go, especially I think 14 hours. So from when you wake up, 14 hours later is when your melatonin starts to kick in. So this is the other hormone that counters that cortisol. And you want the cortisol to go down, and you want that melatonin to go up. And so things like exposure to blue lights really affect that, for example, or stressful events. So I was speaking about exercising in the late evening, that wouldn't help, for example, your melatonin surge. And then throughout the day, your body needs to go into parasympathetic. So thinking about ways to promote that parasympathetic state, because otherwise we're just go all day. So
and that parasympathetic state, is that the one that is connected with the sense of safety we were talking about?
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. So breathing's amazing. It's available to us all, yet we don't do it correctly.
Yeah, we have very little awareness of our breathing and how much can impact on how we feel as well.
So just sitting at your desk and just closing your eyes if you can, if you feel safe, and just doing like five breaths or sets of like 3 sets of 5, where your exhalation is longer than your inhalation. That activates that vagus nerve and the parasympathetic. And things like the physiological side is brilliant. So this is what we do naturally when we're crying. We do double inhale, exhale. And so if you do that, again, same 3 sets, 5 times each, that calms you immediately. So this is a way to hack in the moment, in real time, at no cost, into your nervous system when you've been through a difficult conversation or whatever. So this is what primes you for great sleep. So, yes, we all need good sleep, but sleep is basically a symptom or a reflection of our day. So how are you living your day? It has a lot to do with how well you're sleeping. If you're eating late at night, your body's not going to rest. If you drink at night, again, it impacts alcohol. That is, it impacts your sleep. So make sure you have that earlier. This isn't about depriving yourself, but it's about being smart about what you choose to do, I think.
And the last pillar is about connection. No, we were talking earlier about the fact that our brain is a social organ, and that we need to be connected. But we can be connected in different ways, with people, with nature, with ourselves. And what do you mean with this element of connection?
So and this is connection, I think, to self and others for me, because also in my journey, I realized how disconnected I was from myself, and actually knowing my feelings, what they meant, my patterns, how I was reacting to things. And I was just letting life take me along for the ride. I didn't really feel like I was, an active participant in my life. And so all of this brought me to connection, because I felt like my burnout in a way was a very almost like a crisis of the soul for me, to just show me how far away I was from connecting to my authentic self. And so and then again, this is about self-compassion. I think you mentioned that. So because obviously in this kind of journey, a lot of things come up that you've been trying to suppress, or things that you thought you'd overcome, right?
Yeah.
So it's about talking to yourself like you would to a friend. We are so nice to other people, and yet we're say the meanest things to ourselves, things that we would never say to someone else.
Yes.
So understanding that, this human life is of suffering, and that, everyone's going through something, and
Yes.
just being compassionate, holding yourself dearly. And I love things like Tara Brach's work on radical self-love, for example, or Dr. Neff's work on compassion. So they've got some great exercises that people can check out on how to basically tend to your needs and be able to sit by your feelings in a very compassionate way, even the obscure, dark parts of yourself that you don't like. Just kind of come to accept them as part of you, but they don't define you. Kind of understanding that you can have that, but that doesn't mean that you are that. It's just part of who you are.
Yes, because we are not just one thing, and we are so full of different facets and different angles and ways. And I think also what comes to mind for me before we finish is being part of a community somehow, being part of a group that can give you that the J
vitamin,
the J vitamin.
Yes.
That sense of joy, that sense of connection and joy, and not necessarily to be if we are thinking about everybody that is working in helping others. So to be part of a community that is not necessarily to help others, but to give you a sense of goodness.
Exactly.
But to receive, to have those moments in which you can be part of a group in which you receive as well. And there are so many lovely groups of meditation groups or other kind of groups that
whatever
can be,
interest
or
you have.
that are related to a hobby.
Yes, a hobby or anything.
Anything that is related to something that you really, really like.
That once you do the internal work and you're more authentic, and you know what you like, I think it's easier to then connect with other people. So the two they're very much linked, right? And then you start to see actually a lot of the friendships I had before, were fine, but they weren't really giving me back as much as I wanted, and it's okay to admit that and to kind of go and find other groups and things. So find your hobby or something that you like and try to go and put yourself out there.
Absolutely. That's something that I talk a lot with my clients and my patients. And it's interesting because many of the things that we are talking about today are things that I do talk with my patients, but also are so applicable to us, to ourselves. And yes, to have to acknowledge that right that everybody has, to identify the relationships that are nurturing, the relationships that are positives, and the ones that they want to preserve and feed and maintain in their lives, and eliminate those that are not bringing you the goodness. And
do more of that. So I tell my clients, make time for joy, but actually schedule it. I need to see it in your diary. If that's something that's missing right now, then find what it is that brings you that joy and do more of that, whatever it is, because that's going to help with everything else. So it all works together synergistically.
Absolutely. Okay, so we are reaching the end of today, packed of good tips and loads of information for you to pick up your starting point, to start to create your self-care strategy. Gaby, a huge thank you for being here, for sharing your knowledge and everything that we have been talking about here, because I'm sure it will be very useful for everybody out there working in helping others. So thank you for being there.
You're so welcome. It's been an absolute joy and an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.
See you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.